everybody. But I will say that, in particular since we're recording, I'll say it in the recordings, but we are a meditation center, and we're called a Shambhala meditation center, which is because we're part of a whole network of meditation centers that are part of the Shambhala community. I guess the very oldest ones. Well, there's a couple of Shambhala centers that just celebrated their 50th birthday. Philadelphia. So 55 years is about how long the network's been in place, and we've actually been here 25 years.
In this space, 23.
23, but we've been in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Since about 98. So, and we say Shambhala, you could say that, the way I like to think of it is Shambhala in that sense of our network is like a social container where we offer space for meditation and talk together about how we understand meditation, like what are we doing, and really be attuned to all of the human wisdom traditions, which in many cases point to very same understandings. What it means to be human, what we're doing here, what the big space of the universe is like, but framed differently. Most of the teachings that we offer are based in the Buddhist tradition. The person who founded the network of centers was a meditation master, from Tibet, who left Tibet in 1959 and came to India and then Europe and then North America. And just to say that meditation is about how we actually experience what it's like to be human. And being human has wonderful aspects and challenging aspects, but it's the bucket we're in, right? Because we are humans. And then how do we understand that? How do we relate to it? How do we really make use of all of our talents? How do we relate to all of our challenges, and how are we connected with each other? And just to say like a minute about meditation practice, so many ways to talk about it, but you could say that we spend a lot of time doing and rushing around to do things, and meditation is the practice of being and resting and not seeing what it's like not to always be doing things. And that when we rest with that, one of the words for meditation in Tibetan is gom, which means becoming familiar. So it's like we become familiar with how our minds work and what triggers us and what overwhelms us and what wisdom do we have and what insights do we have access to. So that's kind of the layer of our wisdom that's underneath the commentary that we have running all the time. And a lot of times these days people talk about meditation as a way to reduce stress and anxiety. But sometimes, I was saying this earlier, that the customary way to think that we should be doing that is to clamp down on our thoughts so we don't have as many, so we can make them quiet and kind of tamp everything down. And tamp down all our feelings so we don't have any emotional reactions to everything. And that would be the way to be calm. But actually it's the way to close ourselves off from what it means to be a human being. And the way meditation works with stress and anxiety is not to close it down, but that we acknowledge stress and anxiety happen, and we kind of place that in a really big field, a really big space. And then we have a friendly attitude towards that whole space. So we say, oh, there's anxiety playing in that space over there with fear and anger. Over there in that corner of the pasture, and now here I am appreciating being with all these people and the air conditioning over in this space. And so because we can tune in to what we're really experiencing, we have that big space, and that's our route to working with anxiety, so that it's kind of like a big space, rather than trying to do anything to it, we just see what else is here. So, when we start at 7, when we start meditating, I'll say more about that, but what I like to do in this half hour, what I've been doing is talk about this particular social container called Shambhala. That here we're tapping, we say 3 sources, 3 streams of human wisdom. The 2 from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, and then a 3rd stream that comes from the indigenous wisdom of Tibet. So it's a warrior culture, sees magic, what we call magic in nature, and the aliveness and nobility, and we'll be talking about that too. And then in our case, taking those 3 streams and bringing them into now, here and now, we begin to add other components from the human tradition that speak to that same kind of awakeness. So we don't have any Japanese flower arrangements up now, but that's one of those additional borrowed traditions that come into our tradition as an expression of awakeness. So I said there are 2 Buddhist roots, and last week I started talking about one of them, which is called the Kalachakra Tantra teachings. Kalachakra means wheel of time. And the Kalachakra teachings actually talk about the kingdom of Shambhala. The origin story that's in the Kalachakra Tantra is that, and I'm going to say once upon a time, in the last year of the life of the historical Buddha, so that would be about 470 BC, the king of a kingdom called Shambhala traveled all the way to see the Buddha in India and said, I would like to have teachings on how to be awake, how to be sane, how to be calm, how to tap my human potential, but I can't give up my social role as the king. So I can't become a monk. So the story goes that the Buddha sends the monks out of the room and teaches the king, how do you actually practice meditation and wisdom and bravery and non-attachment when you're surrounded by the silk robes and the jewels and the courtiers and the political manifestos and the work life of your kingdom. And that's the basis of the Kalachakra Tantra teachings. And the story, which we talked about last week, the beginning of the story is the king goes back to his kingdom. He teaches the Kalachakra Tantra first to a few people, and then they teach to a few people over generations. And then after about 7 generations, the Kalachakra teachings and practices are adopted by everybody in the kingdom. And they get so much benefit out of the practices that they become super spiritual. And the story is that then they disappear from this human realm and they go into some kind of spiritual realm, which then Jim wanted to know if that was true or just a myth. To me, it's a myth, but I think it could be a metaphor. Anyway, what I really wanted to do today is kind of extend, just tell you about the rest of the Kala Chakra Tantra, which is, so that's the story up to, when did they dissolve? I don't know which king it was, under which they actually became this spiritual kingdom. And really, to us, a metaphor and an image of what it could, that there could be a kingdom of human people that practiced meditation and knew how to be kind to each other and attained a kind of a supportive society for human life. The rest of the story in the Kala Chakra Tantra is that the kings who are called the Rigden kings, and our imagery is the imagery of a Rigden king, by the way. That their reign is about 100 years, maybe more, and that there is or will be 25 of them. Which, and I can't remember which one we're supposed to be on now, but it's like 21 or 22. And that at the time of the 25th Rigden king, things on the human realm will become so intensely painful that the 25th Rigden will come back and help us. It sounds like a myth we've heard too.
Yeah.
Wish he'd hurry up.
But what I wanted to show you is, this is a video clip from a very famous environmental activist named Joanna Macy that you may have heard of. She just passed away last summer. She was a Buddhist. But she actually really pioneered how do you think about the ecosystem and how do you think about what's happening in Great Barrier and how do you relate to it. And she was not part of our Shambhala community, but she was very, very affected by this Shambhala prophecy. And she puts it in a lot of her teachings. And so I've got us a video to see, which is her talking about the Shambhala prophecy that I thought you would find interesting.
You ready?
Yeah.
From the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. It's called The Coming of the Kingdom of Shambhala, and it is 12 centuries old. This is a particular version of the prophecy embedded in the Kala Chakra Tantra. And it was given to me by my dear friend, Dharma brother, Dugu Chogyal Rinpoche of the community of Tashi Jong in India. When I heard it, I realized that the term Shambhala warrior is a metaphor for what in Buddhism is understood to be the Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva is the hero in the Buddhist tradition. And because the core teaching of the Lord Buddha is the radical inter-existence of all things, if one person has the capacity to be a bodhisattva, then others do too. So let me tell you this prophecy. I'm going to aim it at the bodhisattva inside you. Listen to it as if it were about you, as if you realized it were about.
Discover a better kind of backyard water experience. One that combines fitness.
And I'm giving it to you pretty much in the language I received it from Dugu Chogyal Rinpoche. There comes a time when all life on earth is in danger. At that time, great powers have arisen, barbarian powers. And although they waste their wealth in preparations to annihilate each other, they have much in common. And among the things these powers, these it's called barbarian powers, have in common are weapons of unfathomable devastation and death, and technologies that lay waste the world. And it is just at this point in our history when the future of all beings seems to hang by the frailest of threads that the kingdom of Shambhala emerges. Now you can't go there because it is not a place. It exists in the hearts and minds of the Shambhala warriors. And actually, you can't tell a Shambhala warrior by looking at her or him, because they wear no uniforms, no insignia, they wield no banners, they have no barricades upon which to climb to threaten the enemy or behind which they can rest and regroup. They don't even have any home turf. The Shambhala warriors have only the terrain of the barbarian powers to move across, to act. Now the time is coming, Dugu Chogyal Rinpoche said to me, when great courage is required of the Shambhala warriors. Moral courage and physical courage. And that's because they are going to go right into the heart of the barbarian power to dismantle their weapon. They're going to go into the pits and citadels where the weapons are made and deployed. They're going to go into the corridors of power where the decisions are made to dismantle the weapons in every sense of the word. Now mark this, said Chogyal Rinpoche to me. The Shambhala warriors know that these weapons can be dismantled because they are manomaya. That means mind-made. Made by the human mind, they can be unmade by the human. Because the dangers that face us are not brought upon us by some satanic deity or some evil extraterrestrial force or some unchangeable preordained fate. They arise out of our relationships and habits, out of our priorities. They are made by the human mind. They can be unmade by the human. So, he said, now is the time the Shambhala warriors go into training. How do they train? I asked. They train in the use of two implements, he said. What are they? I asked. And he held up his hands the way the dancers hold the ritual objects in the great Lama dances of his people. And he said, one is compassion, and the other is insight into the radical interdependence of all phenomena. And you need both, he said. You need the compassion because that provides the fuel to move you out where you need to be, to do what you need to do. And it means not being afraid of the suffering of your world. And when you're not afraid to be with that pain, then nothing can stop you. You can be and do what you're meant to. But by itself, he said, that implement is very hot. It can burn you out. So you need the other. That other.
Watch what magnesium does to your bowel.
Why does Grandma's tummy look pregnant? This blocks your bowels.
Got popular now.
Tool, the insight into the radical interconnectivity at the heart of existence. The web of life. our deep ecology. When you have that, you know, he said, when you understand that, then you know that this is not a battle between good guys and bad guys. You know that the line between good and evil runs through the landscape of every human heart. And you know that we are so interwoven in the web of life that even the smallest act with clear intention has repercussions through the whole web beyond your capacity to see. But that's kind of cool, he said. Maybe even a little abstract. So you need the heat of the compassion. That's the prophecy. And if you've seen Tibetan monks doing chanting with the hands, gestures, the mudras, moving, likely as not, they are dancing the interplay between compassion and wisdom, which is there for each one of us to embody now in our own way.
By that prophecy, and I think we've been inspired, that she was inspired, because we know Shambhala from another context, and yet to realize that those are actually its roots is just really powerful. As I said last week, our community doesn't hold the Kali Chakra Tantra as one of our teachings. We have lots of others, and partly that's because we're these combinations, and that's only one of our spaces. But I will talk later about the Kali Chakra Tantra fell out of favor and then came back into popularity into the turn of the 20th century. And so Chogyam Trungpa, when he was a young man, studied the Kali Chakra and with teachers who were very inspired by it. But what he did when he came and started teaching us is really use the image of Shambhala, the kingdom, the fact that there was some sort of social wisdom that actually supports meditation and bravery. Very much the language warrior, which we use a lot in our community. And warrior translated from the Tibetan means one who is brave, not one who makes war. So usually you have to say that. One who's brave and actually manifests beyond aggression. But the last thing I wanted to do is just read you this little passage from this book, which is called Great Eastern Sun, Wisdom of Shambhala. And this book is actually based on talks that Chogyam Trungpa gave in Shambhala Training Level 5. We have a series of meditation programs called Shambhala Training. And there's 5 basic weekend programs. And we're starting them again in September, which I'm sure he'll tell you more about. But he used to give all the level 5s, and this was from one of them. It's quoted in this book. Where somebody said, "Can you talk about the Tibetan legends concerning the kingdom of Shambhala?" And Trungpa Rinpoche says, "Shambhala was an enlightened society that manifested non-aggression. Its geographic location was in the middle of Asia, in the middle or the heart of the Orient. The Shambhala society was able to transmute aggression into love. Consequently, everybody in Shambhala attained enlightenment, so they no longer needed to fight wars. Finally, the whole society, the whole country, including all the buildings, ceased to exist on the earthly plane. That is the story of Shambhala. And the student says, do you think the kingdom of Shambhala will manifest again on a worldwide scale as a golden or enlightened age? And he says, you bet. And then the student says, do you have any time frame for that? Say 100 years or 200 years from now? He says, right now, it's possible. And the student says, many lamas have said it may happen within 100 or 200 years. He says, that's speculation. It happens right now. So I think that captures captures some of the gist and the spark of what we take from the Shambhala legend. And we can continue that. I think what we'll do now is just take a little stretch break for a minute or two, and then we'll sit back down and we'll do some meditation practice. Succeeded in giving us a minute.